Mike, thank you so much for joining us today. As we begin, can you say a couple of words about your current role and what's on your purview?
Sure. Right now, and thanks for having me. I am the VP of Marketing at Panther. So
Hmm.
we're a cybersecurity company in the Bay Area focused on basically the next generation of SIM, really
Hmm.
detection and response at scale. And so at Panther, I sit on the executive team and oversee our sales development team as well as our marketing team.
Interesting. It's interesting that there is sometimes SDR teams report to marketing, and sometimes it's in sales world. It's interesting that more and more you start seeing those teams reporting into marketing. But I think it's always kind of a topic of contention. I'd love to hear your thoughts later on that. But before
Sure.
we go there, this kind of paints the picture a little bit, and this is kind of a dot on the line, but to get a sense of your career trajectory, can you say a few words on how did you get into cybersecurity marketing? What was the first stepping stone?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I have a little bit maybe of a non-traditional path in.
Hmm.
Uh, so my career trajectory, starting at kind of the outset, was to work in management consulting,
Mm.
then transition into venture capital, and then caught the startup bug and started working as operator
Hmm.
in the startup world. And really, the unifying trend across everything that I have done
Hmm.
is, of course, working with technology companies, but really looking at companies that are focused around data and
Hmm.
focused around infrastructure.
Hmm.
And my pathway into cybersecurity came really via that infrastructure route. So working at companies like Rubrik and Kong, where they were traditionally viewed as either, in Rubrik's case, a storage oriented company, or in Kong's case, a networking oriented company. In both of those cases, security was just a massive component of the sale and of the marketing
Mm.
approach. Rubrik's actually now completely rebranded to really a security focus. And so
Hmm.
I think that understanding the technology stack at a deep level, understanding the needs of the buyer base, and understanding how kind of cross-functional and cross-discipline security
Hmm.
is, gave me this pathway of where, looking at a company like Panther, where you're operating in the security data space,
Hmm.
it just kind of made sense.
Certainly interesting. It's yeah, from consulting VC, cybersecurity marketing. It's an interesting path, and I think it's puts you in a very unique position because you have different perspectives and different aspects of the world, both on the investor side and kind of the practitioner side, and also in terms of stage specific startup versus large organization. From that experience, what will be your advice for maybe some of the more junior professionals who are just either looking to transition from technology marketing to cybersecurity, or maybe even further upstream of that, just kind of looking into space and trying to figure out how to make a career. I mean, time is everyone's most important resource. What are the two, three things you would recommend people spend their time on and really invest early on to set them up for success down the line?
It's a great question. I think there are a couple of things that I've just seen that are common among kind of top tier folks working in cybersecurity, working in technology in general. And the first is just curiosity and
Mhm.
genuine interest in whatever the technology domain is. And that means not only the technologies that maybe your product is, or a company that
Mhm.
you're interested in is, but what are the complementary technologies? Who are the people? How do they work? What are their careers like? What is the communities that they work in? Really being curious about the people, the processes that they use, the technology, the reason and the why behind a lot of why these products exist, and the pain that they solve in the market. I think that bringing that level of kind of intellectual curiosity and also empathy to the market is something that is always going to help anybody in marketing and sales, or
Mhm.
really any role in a technology company. The second thing that I would say is that it's really useful to try and understand just the big trends that are affecting a given market. So in the case of security, what we're living in right now, that may be something that's more topical, like ransomware, or it could be, again, those underlying technology shifts of people moving to cloud, or
Mhm.
transition from moving from virtual machines to containers and Kubernetes. Those shifts and just getting an awareness of kind of how those larger trends are working. Again, it's something that's going to help you to match patterns and say, okay, something that worked maybe at a company that was in a different space makes sense here because the patterns line up. There are a lot of instances where things that work maybe in infrastructure work well in security, and there are plenty of places where they don't. And the reason why they do or they don't is typically related to either that larger macro trend or because there's just a difference in the people and the roles that they actually have. And then the third, I would say that just makes anybody valuable in a marketing function is try to get comfortable with data. Try to understand, baseline financial models, baseline kind of typical marketing metrics that are being used. Because whether you're a technical marketer or a product marketer or work in demand gen or work in social media, a lot of your job is going to revolve around either trying to make those metrics go up, or it's going to be around understanding where there may be a metric that you can influence. Those are really the two sides of the coin that I see.
Certainly. That makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. It's interesting. It's most of the time marketers are considered kind of the creative type, and it's not really technical. But in this particular case, I think it's if you're marketing to cybersecurity professionals, it certainly helps to get at least some level of understanding of the underlying technology, even kind of broad strokes. Obviously, there's no expectation of anyone writing code or doing anything of that sort. But I think just understanding, speaking the same language will certainly go a long way. Switching gears a little bit, marketing, it's kind of like this big toolbox with amazing tools inside, and some of them are used more frequently than others. They're also kind of different sequences of them. It's almost like you're putting a recipe together to mix analogies. But what's working for you now? What are you leaning more on these days?
Good question. You kind of hit on it with the way that you ended that last bit there, which is we're talking to a really technical and a really expert level audience. They don't want fluff. They don't want maybe what a lot of traditional marketing campaigns or marketing content will look like. And they want to be reached in a way that feels more interesting. So as far as from a content perspective, what we're seeing working really well right now are our technical workshops. We're focused on topics that, regardless of whether or not you want to use our product, you're going to find them interesting because they are genuinely interesting. There's something that will help, the person on the other side of that who's attending with their career. It'll help them get an understanding of maybe a different approach or something that they should be aware of. And it's something where they can use it to actually get continuing education credits for their certifications. So that is a kind of a content type that's really working for us really well right now because people value it. It's kind of simple enough and crazy to say it. And then the channels that are working for us are just really figuring out how we align the engagement of those. So are we, if somebody comes to our demo page or they come to look at our product, can we retarget them with that less pressure, high pressure sales motion type of ad or engagement? And instead of sending them something that says, book a demo, talk to our sales team, even though you might not at all be ready to do that or even interested in doing that, we're instead giving you something that might introduce you to the product, but also does it where it provides you with real value. So we're seeing a lot of value in that. And then I would say kind of outside of that, one area where, everybody's in the same economy right now where dollars are at a premium. We're all trying to be very focused on how we can drive pipeline and how we can have that pipeline convert at the best rate possible. We're seeing retargeting and pipeline marketing being one of the most effective areas. So helping to follow our SDRs and our sales folks in the field with air cover essentially with marketing of where, again, we're providing more opportunities for their prospects to learn and engage.
Interesting. And the workshops that you mentioned, are they face to face? Are they virtual? And also, are they focused more on the problem, or is it a problem conversation, or is it a product conversation?
So in the case of our workshops, we are doing them both virtually and live.
Mhm.
So Ken Weston is our field CISO. He's a industry expert, awesome guy. He is doing workshops at places or at conferences like B-Sides. He's running them virtually every couple of weeks for folks that can't attend. And you know, he does a really nice job of using the product to focus on a problem. So currently, like one of our most popular workshops is about purple teaming. So it's really looking at how you're doing purple teaming, how you're thinking about detection as code. Now, you can use our product to do that, and we would love you to do that.
Of course.
But you could do that in a lot of different ways. And he's making sure that this is a conceptual learning and sort of engaging with the topic versus, you know, again, we're not trying to shove our product down people's throats.
Makes sense. Makes sense. You mentioned kind of pipeline, and I think what's interesting, and I think it's probably a gradual shift over time, is that if you look at kind of bottom of the funnel activities, when people are showing intent, they're on your website, you can retarget them. They're responding to SDRs, booking demos. They're engaged. They decided already that or at least they're aware of the problem. They may not have decided that they need a solution. They may not have decided on the vendor, but at least they're ready to have a problem conversation and maybe even a product conversation. But we often find that if you look at the total addressable market of that, only a fraction would actually be showing intent. The rest of them, they could be qualified. They could fit your ideal customer profile, but they're further upstream in their customer journey. They're qualified by their title, they're qualified by the industry, by the company size. They're just busy with problems other than the one that your product is solving, and as a result, it's hard to get them to attend. It's hard to engage them just because they tend to ignore and just dismiss everything that goes their way.
Absolutely.
And at the same time, programs addressing those upstream potential clients that tend to have longer sales cycles. Attribution is more fuzzy because it's multi-touch. Did they come to a demo because they had a conversation at RSA 3 years ago, or maybe they were in a private Slack channel and the dark funnels, as they call them now.
Absolutely.
It's not an easy sell to the CFO. You can invest downstream, put a $1, and 2 months later you get $3 on the other end. Versus here, the sales cycles are longer and the ROI is not as transparent and immediate. How do you think about? But at the same time, if you don't do it, then it's hard to imagine people on their own kind of walking this path. How do you think about attribution and longer sales cycles, more the upstream of the demand generation side of the world?
Really good question. I mean,
loaded question. I admit.
No, I feel like this is one of the biggest questions that you kind of deal with in marketing, and certainly from a financial perspective about how you're thinking about investing. You know, one of my kind of maybe controversial opinion is that I think that at a leadership level, what matters in marketing is how you choose to spend money, how you choose to spend money on your people, and how you choose to spend money on your programs. So those are the two vectors by which I can really affect change in the business, either through hiring people who are going to do great things, change our messaging, write content, et cetera, or by putting dollars in things like events, ads, you know, various different programs that I can touch. So as I think about, you know, kind of the high top of the funnel, right, or even the dark funnel, again, I'm really trying to just at that point make sure that I'm maintaining awareness with those folks and that I'm staying relevant in terms of being an option, but also kind of seeding the market with, hey, if you're encountering this issue or this challenge, this problem, or if you maybe have a specific type of compelling event that's going to come up, you should consider us and you should engage with us. So trying to seed the message of where we're different, where we're great, but also seed the message of when this thing comes along, you should give us a call. because I don't think that, and I don't think this is a terribly controversial opinion at this point. The way that people buy it has changed. They're not usually going out and just saying, I want to get into a sales process and kick tires. Usually they are existing in that dark funnel. Usually they are kind of coming to engage when they're ready and it's on their terms. And you hit on the point well, which is, I would say the biggest challenge that we run into, and that we see with folks in the field, is like, okay, why do they have to do this right now, right? A great sales leader I worked with at a previous company would always talk about the 3 whys of, why anything, why us, and why now. And I think that why now piece is so important, because unless there is a compelling event for them, they're coming up on a renewal of their existing tool, they have to hit a compliance need, they have something that's going to really move the needle of them needing to buy a solution, buy anything. It's hard to just magically overcome that with a product like most cybersecurity products that aren't drivers of revenue. Like, security costs money, and unless you're going to really prove out that you deliver a higher ROI, or that you can help somebody achieve something that they need to, you are costing them money, regardless of whether or not it includes their security posture. And I think that's something that we're always cognizant of we need to invest in the top of funnel to build awareness. I'm partial to events for that, because I think that there's a lot of value in getting out, meeting people, getting to have that face-to-face connection, and meeting people when they're ready to engage with vendors and learn. I think it's a really good way of doing that. Not to get a list of emails to then spam them, but rather to actually have the face-to-face conversation. And certainly I think another way is what I alluded to Ken Weston doing and previously, is getting out and getting to run things like workshops, getting to engage with folks again, have that awareness, so that when they actually get to that consideration phase, that's when we get to really invest in them from a capture standpoint. So the dollars on the retargeting, pipeline marketing, that's where I like to focus the lion's share.
I understand. So in other words, you create enough upstream content that's engaging, valuable, not salesy, just to educate and pick curiosity of prospects, so that if kind of create enough rabbit holes for them to tumble into, so that when they are ready, they can have a meaningful conversation, and you can, at that point, it becomes a sales motion in conjunction with the marketing motion, it sounds like, which
exactly probably... I've spent a lot of time in the open source world, and open source is the classic, we're giving it away for free and we want you to find value in this thing. I think of content and programs, and what you do from a marketing perspective at the top of the funnel should feel very similar. It should either make their job easier, make their career better, or just make their day better. And those are the 3 things that I want to do and have people think about us as a brand.
Interesting. But does that mean that you mentioned in the beginning data, how important data is? And well, I would imagine probably looking at the metrics that you want to improve, or attribution and things like this, which probably makes more sense the further down funnel you go, because it's more kind of immediate. You push this button and this happens, rather than upstream. It's really kind of multi-touch, and it's a little bit more fuzzy because of the longer cycles and the dark funnels that you don't see or don't control. So
from the attribution, from the attribution standpoint, I think where I see people run into traps, I guess, or challenges with attribution is like, there are a lot of great tools out there right now that will help you triangulate. But when you try and do one-to-one attribution, is where most of these things, due to the object model in Salesforce, or due to the information that you can get from various sources, starts to break down. So if you look at something like a 6 Sense, 6 Sense can tell you somebody from a given company was on your website. So you have an idea of whether or not you're attracting kind of the right types of accounts. Now, can it tell you that it was the CISO? Can it tell you that it was, an engineer? No, but it can give you a good source of information of, are we bringing people into the funnel? Are these, higher funnel engagement efforts that we're doing, where at the end of the day, if I'm thinking at the top of the funnel, the best way I can measure that is how many people are coming to a given website, how many people are engaging in that way, because that tells me whether or not I'm expanding awareness. But sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No. It's that's essentially what I was going with this. That there's a line somewhere that it can deploy more data-driven approaches and kind of more rigorous and more robust and for more upstream, like just at some point I feel like we have to accept that we'll not know exactly the
No,
weight of one factor or the other, one touch versus the other, and you say, look, this is valuable content. I'm sure something good will come out of it. We don't know when, we don't know which of the 10,000 organizations in our ICP will respond in a positive way, but I know enough of them will to make it worthwhile, and that's good enough for
yeah, I think of it as, as much as I want to know what influences them, what I really want to understand is what gets them to the point of where I can say that they have a high degree of intent. What are the things that lead them to specific points that to me obviously mean that something's working? And that could be them requesting pricing or looking at our pricing page. It could be them requesting a demo. It could be them going into a free trial. It could be them looking at a piece of content that is what I would consider to be like true bottom of funnel content. But again, it's kind of the same as the MQL and lead scoring thing. If somebody downloads a bunch of ebooks that are only tangentially related to our product or more thought leadership, that doesn't qualify them really at all. It just shows that they value the content, which is great for a different purpose of keeping that brand awareness, but it doesn't mean that they're qualified by any means. So I don't want my SDRs chasing ebook leads.
Exactly, they're not sales ready.
Right.
Interesting. And you mentioned open source and kind of implied that it's a model that's driven by consumption, which echoes a little bit if somewhat new concept of PLG, product-led growth.
Sure.
And there's kind of a huge debate in the industry whether it's as a concept, if it's applicable to all companies, or some of them are more likely to take advantage and really see the results than others. Like, what are your thoughts on this very heated conversation at times?
PLG is it's funny. I feel like I've had this conversation for the last like 5 or 6 years. I think product-led growth works in a lot of situations. It doesn't work in every situation. And at a product-led growth company, I think anybody there would tell you that eventually you need sales, because you need sales to either structure deals that make more sense, to help to drive consumption through a business, or just to land larger customers where they may have, regulations or internal policies that prohibit PLG products from working. So if you're thinking of the Fortune 1000, I can't just go in a lot of cases and get a technology. That's different based on the org, but in a lot of cases, that's a little bit more locked down. In the case of, so I do believe it really depends a lot on the product and on the market that you're serving. I think that PLG works really well when you are serving the lower end of the market. I think it works really well when you have a product with a very clear and a very fast aha moment, like time to value. So something like Asana, great example. Asana, I get into and I'm like, cool. It got me to a task list and got me organizing my stuff in 2 seconds. That's immediate value. Now, if I think it's something like a product where you either need lots of data or you need to do very complex things, that becomes a lot more challenging to sell in a PLG model, unless there's just a tectonic shift in the market that is pushing everybody in that way.
I would agree. It's not for everyone. Yeah, I totally agree. Something like Figma is very different from something like Salesforce. It's like very different.
Exactly. Figma is a perfect example.
Millions of designers on one hand, they're almost often solo shops versus large organizations with huge data sets that are sensitive and a lot of different departments involved. Makes a lot of sense. You mentioned events as well. And when you talk about events, are you talking about RSAs and Black Hats and Gartners of this world, or is it more regional or self-hosted? Or maybe
good question. It's a bit of both. I mean, I I love to do first party events. Again, coming from the open source background where we had community meetups, where that was a huge part of staying top of mind for folks, building that kind of dark funnel referral network, getting installs. I really like those types of things. We're mainly pursuing that, I think, through going through to the more community driven events. So events like B-Sides, but certainly, you know, looking at where there are going to be large concentrations of the right type of folks. And sometimes we get it really right. And sometimes when we're experimenting, trying them out, they don't have as many of those folks as we would want to see. And we sort of look at that as an experimental type of thing where we wouldn't go back the next year. I do think that for the most part, you know, going to Black Hat, RSA, things like that, for a cybersecurity company that's trying to scale, you almost have to, not necessarily because like you don't have to spend tens of billions of dollars on anything, but certainly sending people there to network, to get your name out there, and to understand just and be part of the conversations that are going on. Because again, I look at that as a lot of CISOs will tell you they go to RSA and that's the week of the year where they're taking vendor meetings, and otherwise they don't want to be bothered. So that's a really great opportunity to learn from the market as well as to share with the market what you're working on and where you can provide them with value.
Absolutely. And if you're scrappy, you can do it it can be a baller on the budget.
Absolutely. I mean, it doesn't have to be just
Well, no, I see companies,
yeah.
I see companies, even larger, like unicorns, really going for like a smaller booth and really very modest kind of footprint. And other companies, they, to your point, they just get a big, nice suite at a hotel and host and kind of siphon a little bit of traffic this way and do something adjacent and concurrent with RSA, but not necessarily spending tens of cents. I mean, I heard the numbers. I was just totally blown away by how expensive it is. Mike, I know we're coming up on time. I really appreciate it. Last question. You have a crystal ball and you can see into the future. 12 months from now, cybersecurity marketers will be excited, anxious, I know, thinking about, talking about what 2 or 3 themes that haven't played out yet, or maybe starting to play out.
Yeah, I guess I look at it in 2 ways. One is, what are they going to be talking about that the market is talking about from a this is interesting level? And then I think about how are they maybe going to be feeling, because how are the market conditions? And on the first side of that, I think we've seen a lot of products coming out now talking about using AI in their products. I think we're going to see a huge influx of conversation and products and vendors or vendor solutions for people that are using AI, because it does present just so many different challenges from a security and governance perspective. So I see that as a huge wave of technologies that will come on the heels of all of these new AI powered tools. You know, you can see it every day on Twitter or LinkedIn or X, whatever it's called now, where you're just seeing these large language models present opportunities for people to exploit them. And so I see that as a topic of where there will be a lot of new products that come out to help with that, and there'll just be a lot of market chatter about it in general. And then I think on the market condition side, I do think that the tide is sort of shifting. Budgets are getting a little bit more open. People are certainly cost conscious and evaluating all their solutions on a TCO and ROI basis. But there's less existential fear about, oh man, do we just have to completely stop? So I think marketers in general will start to get the opportunity to, sell to the value with cost in mind, but have more opportunities to get in and to potentially sell a net new solution. So those are the 2 things that I think are really going to shift.
It's awesome. That's good to hear. It's really kind of music to my ears, because all I see is kind of fear mongering and mostly like business news and all the headwinds. So it's actually very good to hear. Awesome, Mike. Thank you so much for your time. This was amazing. Where can people find you?
Yeah, if you're looking at me, I'm on Twitter. I'm MJ or X. Gosh, I keep doing that. I'm MJ_Bilodeau, my last name, or you can find me on LinkedIn. You can email me. I'm just Mike@Panther. Always happy to chat with folks who are looking to either break into marketing, break into tech, or break into cybersecurity. So happy to chat.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Cool. Well, thank you. Appreciate you.